Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Marina Digitals. I'm going to do an edit using my new fine art white podiums in Photoshop. This one's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to do an edit with a model sitting down rather than standing or kneeling. I'm going to go ahead and come over to my image that's open, and I'm going to select all, edit, copy, edit, and paste into my digital backdrop. First things first, the light is not coming from the right direction, so I can either flip the backdrop or flip the subject. I do recommend flipping the backdrop if you're going to be delivering this to a client. If you're just using it for your portfolio or something, it might not be as important. I'm just doing this for editing purposes, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip my subject. I'm going to go over to my quick selection tool, select subject up here at the top, wait for that to work, and I don't want it to select the block or anything else because I'm going to have her sitting on the podium here. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer and create a layer mask. Sorry, I already had it in here once. And then I'm going to drag my background layer between those two images. If your background is locked, just unlock it and you'll be able to drag it in between. Okay, and then click on my subject and resize. Press the check mark up there at the top. Okay, and then I'm going to work on painting. So she was already on a white backdrop, which is helpful because the backdrop here is white too, so I can erase some of the areas to keep the original shadows. But first I'm going to brighten her up just a little bit more. I'm just going to add a curves layer, create a clipping mask so it only applies to the subject and not the entire backdrop. Okay, and then I'm going to come to my layer mask on her, grab a brush at 100% opacity, white, and I'm just going to brush on down by her feet to get my original shadows back into the image. And I don't want to brush off the podium, so I'm going to brush up to it, and then I'm going to add some extra shadow in there. Switch to black to brush back on if you need to. I just wanted to get that original shadow right under her feet here. Okay, and then I'm going to create another layer above the background, and I'm going to change it to multiply blending mode. And I'm going to use a brush on about 25% opacity. I'm going to grab the shadows down here on the block, and I'm just going to paint some. I misclicked there. I'm just going to paint some right here to create that shadow from her leg. And now light is going to be coming through underneath her legs here, so I'm not going to need much shadow right here, just where her leg is touching right here on this side. And then I'm going to create another layer. I like to do my shadows on different layers so I can work with them individually. Change it to multiply blending mode, and then I'm going to paint in shadow for this leg. Try to match the shadow right here from her foot going up. Okay, I'm going to create another layer, multiply blending mode, and I'm going to brush in some shadow. Use a bigger brush here, and then I'm going to erase up here so I can kind of feather it out a little bit easier there. Okay, and then I'm going to create a layer mask on that, black brush, 25% is fine, and I'm going to brush some of that back off. Definitely brush it off up here because we don't want any shadow on the very background there. Okay, and zoom out. I'm going to lower the opacity on that shadow. The other ones look pretty good. Actually, this one could be. Bring that down a little bit more. Actually going to feather that one out just a little bit. I'm going to add a new layer, multiply blending mode. Lower that opacity. And I'm going to brush this one off just a little bit. So I'm going to create that layer mask. Use my black brush just to brush that off a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to click on the layer mask of my subject, and I'm going to go around the edges and I'm going to clean them up. You can use your brush at 100% opacity white to brush on if there's some areas that are missing. And then you're going to use black to brush off if there's areas that copied that you don't want. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it can be a little bit time consuming to get the edges perfect. Or you can fast forward. I'm just going to try not to get the most important parts. The feet copied pretty good. I don't want the original white floor right there. Looks like her jeans just didn't copy over very well. So I would have to go around the whole edges and clean them up. Her hand. That did a pretty good job. A lot of times the shoulders don't copy very well. Her hair looks good. I think everything else looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out. And then I'm going to take my backdrop and I'm going to merge it with all the layers that I did to edit onto it. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to add just about 2, I think. 2 or 3. Yeah, I'm going to do 2. And then I'm going to create a layer mask on there. And that just added a bit of blur. Let's see here. Blur to the backdrop because you don't want it to be as sharp as your subject because you want to create that depth. And then I'm going to use my black brush on 100% opacity and I'm just going to brush off some of these areas that are on the same plane as where she's sitting because those would not be as blurred. Okay, there's a spot here. Not sure if that was from the block or what that I need to brush off there. There we go. Okay. And then you can add, I'm happy with my shadows. I might tweak this one just a tiny bit more. Do a little bit of a smaller, since her jeans are right up against it, do a little bit more of a smaller, more defined shadow there. Where her jeans are touching the actual, there we go. Okay. Okay. And then I would add maybe a little bit So you can see her shadows are really deep in the edit I did on her, and the backdrop kind of has a little bit more of like a matte finish to it. So sometimes I like to add, I'm going to go over here and grab my brush, and I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard, and I'm just going to click that brown, a darker medium color of brown up here. I'm going to click the layer of my subject, and I'm going to add a solid color here, and then I'm just going to drag it down, and not a lot, maybe only like 5%, and that's just going to add a little bit of an overlay to kind of get her tone to kind of match the rest of the image. You can also put it on like soft light or overlay, which I actually might do for this one. I think I'm going to do that for this one. And then I'm going to go to my adjustments, and I'm going to grab my levels, and I'm just going to bring this one up a tiny bit. And if I zoom in, you can just kind of see that that kind of just took away some of the really dark shadows on her. Okay. Still not happy with the shadowing here. I'm going to play with that for just a minute. You can fast forward if you need to. I'm going to use a small opacity. There we go. And it just needs feathered out a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to click my subject, create another layer on multiply blending mode above my subject instead of my background, and I'm going to hold down my Alt key and click a darker part of her jeans here, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of shadow. So wherever you're painting, whatever color you're painting on, you want to grab a dark part of that color. I think that's what's going on over here too. I need to darken her jeans a little bit. Okay, and then I think I'm actually going to brighten up. Screen blending mode will make it a little bit brighter. I'm going to brighten this block up a little bit between her legs, and that helped. I feel like that helped a lot. Yeah, to make it look a little bit more realistic and like the block she was sitting on at first. Now it's kind of the same tone. I'm going to add a screen layer above her as well, and just make her jeans a little bit brighter on that side. You can use like Dodge and stuff like that too, but I don't recommend doing it on the actual layer a lot of the times. It's easier to add a layer above, that way you can adjust it if you need to. And then sometimes I go around and I use a little bit of blur on the edge of my subject. There's a little black spot here. I don't know what that is. Use my black brush to get rid of it. Actually, looks like we need to paint in some of her jeans here. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. As I was going to say, sometimes I paint in some blur around the edges, but I do not think that I am going to do it for this image because I think that it blends pretty well. This is just one way you can use these backdrops. You can do standing edits on the podiums. I have another backdrop in there that kind of has like a piece of slate coming out, so you can even edit a subject in between those two layers. I just thought these were really pretty for more of a fine art look. If you have any questions, you can message me, or you can ask in the Facebook group. If you are not yet a part of it, I will link it in the description. And I'm going to go ahead and flatten my image here. And then if you wanted to do any additional editing to the whole image, you could. Just do like a quick before and after. before and after.